High atop the city of Philadelphia and on the 52nd floor of the BNY Mellon Bank Center and the Content Club studio in the Pyramid Club of Philadelphia, this is Storytelling with a Purpose. I'm your host, Jim DeLorenzo, the principal of Jim DeLorenzo Public Relations. And through this show, I want to illustrate how storytelling with a purpose is integral to my lifelong vocation, storytelling in public relations, with conversations that highlight best practices, tactics, and strategies behind the process, how storytelling works in a professional setting, what goes into it, and how it can move the listener, the viewer, or the reader to some action. Now, part of being a storyteller or a professional storyteller that is part of my character, part of my nature, is to listen to other people's stories. And I met Jasmine Tate-Supplee about 3 months ago for the first time. And she told her story about what she was doing and what she has been going through in a networking event. And I immediately had a response. And several times in conversations with Jasmine since then, since our first meeting, I get very emotional because I think this is an emotionally charged story. It's a good story coming from a bad situation. But I would like to let Jasmine explain this herself. She is the founder and CEO of Shafir's Journey and a broker owner of Philadelphia Lux Realty, a dedicated wife and mother of 3 boys. After a decade in the real estate industry, she decided to take her passion for business, community, and the advancement of all people to the nonprofit sector after a tragic accident with her oldest son. Shafir was shot by a stray bullet while playing basketball in a playground with his friends. Her son was paralyzed from the waist down due to this incident. During their months in the hospital and in inpatient rehabilitation, Jasmine and Shafir noticed a grave disparity in the other children suffering from spinal cord injuries, from a lack of access to life-sustaining medical equipment and supplies to sometimes being abandoned by their families due to not being able to properly care for them. Jasmine felt the need for something to be done. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The need for something to be done. And again, my first note that I ever wrote about our conversations and what I was hearing is that this is a story that needs to be told. And this is a situation that many of us have turned a blind eye to or just have not been aware of. Mm-hmm. But you are such a positive force here. Mm-hmm. And you have such a positive mindset that I think it's inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you.
You started Shafir's Journey as a response to what happened.
Yes.
If you would, can you share some of the details of that April afternoon?
Sure. So on April 19th, my son was in a playground, playing basketball, and he was shot. I believe the person that did it rode around a couple of times and just sprayed the playground. A bullet barely missed a 3-year-old baby. And I was not there. I was at home. So I actually received a call from the hospital. My son's amazing. He actually called 911 himself.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So he called 911 himself because he said, "Mom, I knew I needed help." And the ambulance took him to the hospital, and I received a call from the hospital saying that he had been shot and I need to come. So that, of course, no parent wants to get that phone call.
Absolutely.
But that is what started our journey. So our journey started there at the hospital, and then he was transferred to inpatient rehab a few weeks later.
And one of the things that's interesting to me is you started meeting other families and other individuals who have the spinal cord injuries.
Yes.
And it's more prevalent than we realize, and it happens to more people than we realize. Mm-hmm. And how many of those would you think, would you estimate are because of a violent crime or?
So most people are not born with a spinal cord injury.
Right.
We're talking probably 95%. it's a very short percentage that they are actually born that way because of, spina bifida or something like that. So the leading cause is car accident.
Okay.
Second is gunshots.
Wow.
The third cause is just activity-related things. I've met kids that were bungee jumping, they were swimming, diving,
Right.
just doing very active things, and they injured their spines. But the first cause is car accidents. The second is gun violence.
Wow. That's amazing. And we're here in Philadelphia where there have been a lot of incidents of gun violence, especially over the last 2-3 years. So Shafir was caught up in that.
Yes.
An innocent bystander on a playground playing basketball. You've mentioned to me one of the things that's most remarkable about the story of Shafir and his journey and how it leads to the foundation is his positive attitude. If you don't mind, what are some of the things that he does? What are some of the things that Shafir does that have inspired you and inspired others?
Oh my gosh, I'm inspired every single day by him. Children with spinal cord injuries, their lives are so different. They're so different from who they were or what they were able to do before. And so many people ask him, or they expect for him to be depressed. That's actually the first reaction.
Right.
They expect for somebody that has gone through something like this to be depressed, and he is not depressed at all. He says, Mom, I don't have time to be depressed. I have to walk again,
Yep.
If I am depressed, how can I walk? So his mindset is very positive, very forward thinking. He's all about helping other children with spinal cord injuries. He just told me this morning, he said, Mom, wheelchair people are like my favorite people right now.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So he's such an advocate. He's very passionate about children with spinal cord injuries, places being accessible, them having health equity, because there's so many things that they don't have and that's not available to them.
Wow.
But that's what keeps him going. That's what keeps him so positive, that and knowing that I'm going to walk again. So I don't have time to be depressed.
Yes.
But that is his mindset. So that's amazing. And it honestly amazes every single person that he meets every day.
One of the things that struck me when we first started talking was that positive attitude. And I see it in you as well. You are a very positive person. You began your career in real estate.
Yes.
You're an entrepreneur. You have built a successful business.
Yep.
So there's all these things in your background as an entrepreneur in the real estate sector. You've had all these experiences. You're familiar with being turned down. You're familiar with getting rejections. You're familiar with the struggles of running a business. You basically put all that on hold for most of the rest of 2023 while you were helping Shafir in his rehabilitation and all the things that come with it. And part of that journey that Shafir is on, you saw firsthand and you shared with him. What were some of the things that you were finding that inspired you to start this nonprofit?
Oh, the children, Jim, the children. So when you're in inpatient rehab, you are face-to-face, room to room with children and families that are going through basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Very similar situation. So I came across a young man. A lot of them are abandoned.
That was something that really struck me again.
Yeah.
When you first told me that, I was in shock.
Most people are.
And
Most people are.
if you would, why are they abandoned?
There's a lot of financial responsibility that comes with dealing with a disabled child. I don't like to use the word disabled, but for a public place, disabled is a term that we know or we're familiar with. So it's a lot of financial responsibility that comes with it. And at first, as a parent, as a mother, I was flabbergasted. How could you leave your child? Most of these children were able to walk one day, and then their next memory is waking up in the hospital and they can't feel. they can't feel, and then their parent, their mother, their father is no longer there.
Wow.
So this is
That's
their
awful.
reality, right? But in talking to some of the parents, they expressed to me, I didn't want to leave my child. I felt like I didn't have a choice. They felt like financially they couldn't deal with the monthly cost of having a disabled child.
Okay.
They also felt like the state could take better care of them. They couldn't make accommodations to their home. It's very hard to make accommodations to a row home in Philadelphia.
Sure.
But these are things that we, as a majority, don't think about because we don't come across it every day. And unless somebody in your family or yourself has went through a limiting physical disability, we just can't wrap our brains around it.
No, it's very hard to imagine. People don't like to think about it.
Right.
People don't even like to hear about it in many cases. But that it's a story that's out there. It's something that's happening around us. And my initial thoughts and my continuing thoughts are, how have we let this go? How have people, and I think part of it is that not necessarily ignorance, but a feeling of, well, that's not something I have to deal with, so I'm not going to think about it.
Yeah.
And and then when you hear something like Shafir's story, your story, all of a sudden you're like, that can't be happening.
I've met so many people that said, I had no idea this was a thing. I had no idea this was happening. And again, until something like this happened, I didn't know.
Sure.
I didn't. The people in my family, they didn't know. Until it happens to you, this is a world that we don't even know about. Almost a third of Philly is disabled. Almost a third.
That's incredible.
It's a major population that we don't even, it's like untapped. We don't even know it exists.
Sure. And we don't really actively seek that out.
We don't.
And we're caught up in our other little silos of what we experience and what our family members experience and what our friends might experience, and then we don't go beyond that.
Yep.
And then we watch the news at night, which is awful anyway. And I've definitely cut back on my news consumption, especially in Philadelphia.
I know.
But it's mind-boggling that this is something that I don't want to put too broad a brushstroke into this, but it's happening every day.
It is.
And whether we look at it or not, it's happening every day. And these families, these children, their parents, it's heartbreaking. So we've got what would be a heartbreaking situation for anyone. You have a son paralyzed from the waist down, going through rehabilitation. He has an incredible positive attitude. When did that positive attitude kind of move into your spirit? Because I can imagine after the initial shock, you might have had some depression. You might have had some down moments. And then you see your son who's so strong and so positive about, I'm going to walk.
Let me just say, my son has never seen me have those moments.
Good.
Ever. When I first saw him, it was heartbreaking. It's just something that as a parent you never ever want to experience. It probably was literally the worst day of my life. But I had to be strong for him.
Right.
And every time I wanted to cry, every time I wanted to scream, even, we're taught to never ask why, because things don't happen to you, they happen for you, right? And I'm a very big believer in the universe doesn't make any mistakes.
Okay.
So everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
Even if we don't know why now. Now, in the face of a situation like that, that is so hard to swallow because it's your child, it's your baby.
Right.
This was my firstborn. So the tie between me and him is inseparable,
Sure.
But I had to be strong and positive for him. So I definitely had the moments where I cried in my car. Most of the time I didn't leave when he first was injured, but I would go to the parking lot and cry in my car for a minute or go in the hallway and just have a moment of sadness, but I have never allowed my son to see that. Now, I have definitely told him it is okay to feel whatever you are feeling, because there are good days, there are bad days.
Yes.
There are great days and bad moments with anything like this. And I don't believe that anybody should just tell you that you have to be positive all the time. You have to be happy. We're human beings,
Right,
you know?
right.
We're human beings. And to hold those feelings in is not normal, it's not natural, and they're going to come out in some way. So I definitely had my moments. I did not want to do that in front of him, because my whole thing was, how would he feel? Like, I cannot be more hurt than him.
Right.
I can't, Jim.
Yeah.
He lost his legs, and my son is a very active young man. So if he could sit there and be strong, then I had to sit there and be strong. From the beginning,
Right.
I had to sit there and be positive and continue to spend that positivity. You are going to walk again. You are, because you said so. So that was my thing.
Okay.
I never really had a depressive phase. Also because, again, I didn't know why it happened, but I knew that something bigger and greater was going to come out of this. I just didn't know what or when, but I knew that it was going to help him in a tremendous way. Because everything happens for a reason. So.
Well, Shafir's going to have his 17th birthday soon.
17th, yes.
Your middle child is 7.
Yes.
And your youngest child is on the brink of 4.
Yes.
And then your husband.
Mm-hmm.
How do you couch that positive attitude in integrating with your family beyond Shafir?
It was hard for a second with my husband. Men are protectors, right? So he saw his son injured, unjustly injured, in a hospital bed. And he was angry.
Sure.
He was angry at first. But, I had to pull him out the room, and I had to tell him, hey, guess what? When he looks at you, he sees every emotion that's on your face. And he doesn't know what you're angry at.
Yeah.
What if he feels like my dad's now angry with me?
Sure. That's a great point.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't understand that our emotions show on us and the effect that they can have on the other person, because we're so much in our own heads. And I get it. It was a day for us. It was a day for us. There was somebody out there that hurt our child unjustly.
Right.
Okay? But again, what does that say to him? What does that say to him?
Sure. It makes him stop and worry and get upset.
It does.
Yeah.
And then it puts all these thoughts in his head, like, well, maybe he doesn't want to take care of me now that I'm disabled.
Right.
Or maybe I'm going to become a burden. That's the last thing we want to put into his head. The last thing. So after we had that conversation, he was good to go.
Right.
He was good to go. He was just as positive as everybody else. The little ones were always positive. Okay. They didn't have those moments.
Right.
They were just happy that their brother's now in a chair. Of course, they wanted to know what happened.
Right.
We told them, he got sick, because it's very difficult trying to explain this world to a 3 and a 6-year-old at that time.
Right.
So, but they understand sickness. They understand that your brother's sick a little bit. We have to just help him a little bit more. But they think the wheelchair's a toy. They do.
You mentioned that to me earlier.
Yeah, they want to ride on it. They're like, come on, let's go. They want to kick it and high five it.
Yeah.
They are the cutest kids ever, but they didn't have those moments.
Good.
That's did
good.
Not.
That's wonderful. Now, in the course of that rehabilitation, you shut your business down.
Yes.
You dedicated yourself full-time to your son.
Mm-hmm.
I know that your husband helps in the business.
Mm-hmm.
He probably had those same situations going on with him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you meet these other children and families along the way. And we talked briefly about the abandonment issue.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other issues these families face when caring for their children who have been disabled like this?
Well, most of them have to stop working, so there's the financial piece. The financial piece is one of the biggest pieces. They do have financial insecurity. just getting a wheelchair. So these are children that are now disabled either from the waist down or neck down. So they literally cannot stand, walk, or be mobile on their own. It takes the insurance company about 6 to 8 months to just approve the price of a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
So if you don't have a loaner from one of the hospitals, I've literally watched some of these hospitals piece together wheelchairs from old wheelchair parts.
Okay.
So that kids can be mobile. If you don't have that, though, or if you don't have insurance, how will you get around? How will that child get around? So that's something else that's looming above these families that they don't know how to navigate. How is my son going, or my daughter, my child, going to get out of the bed
Right.
without a chair that is life-sustaining, you know?
Wow.
Another thing that comes about, they're very prevalent to get infections.
Right.
But this is also because a lot of the things that can prevent infections are not covered by insurance. So
Interesting.
yeah, or they're covered on a minimal basis like gloves. These children are bowel and bladder incontinent. So if you don't have gloves, how can you have, there's
Right.
going to
Help
be
them.
Yeah, there's going to be an increase of infections with that. Even with a clean technique, there's an increased risk of infection. So I've had parents tell me if I have to choose between food and getting gloves, I'm going to buy food.
Right. Right.
So that's a big thing. Just trying to get the equipment that they need, the supplies, and then the financial piece is huge with these families.
Sure. And you mentioned to me, I mean, the cost of this in dollars. And one of the things that you told me along the way was that the wheelchairs, the gloves, and the sanitary wipes are the three biggest needs right now that you're trying to do
Yes.
to meet those needs with Shafir's Journey.
Yes.
Now, when did you have the idea to start the nonprofit, and how did that process start?
It was a slow process. This is our life. So we see children like this every single day.
Right.
So I kept saying, something has to be done. This is crazy. This is insane. I can't believe that nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
There aren't any resources for this. And I just said it so many times that my son one day said, I know, you should do something. So I always teach my kids. I teach them the power of responsibility. If you say something and you want to change it, then be the change, right? And when he said that, a light bulb went off. I cannot keep telling them to be the change, be the action that you
Sure.
wish to see, and I'm not taking the action. So after that conversation, I officially started the nonprofit, did all the paperwork, got my 501c3, and ever since then, it's just took off. It really has. Like, I didn't even know how many people would want to help us. I really thought it would just be our family.
Sure.
But a lot of people don't know what's going on. And once they find out, they're like, oh my gosh, like, how can we help?
Right. And that was the situation with me. I mean, when I heard this the first time, I was upset. And, I talk about storytelling to move you towards some action. Positive storytelling that will move you to buy a product or go to an event or support an organization.
Yes.
And your story, Shafir's Journey, your family story, is so out of my realm that I believe in what you're trying to do. That's why I wanted to have this conversation. What are the goals for you in setting up Shafir's Journey as a nonprofit? What are the goals for you in this first year of operation?
So in this first year, we want to provide 20 families with supply kits every single month.
Okay.
And the goal for that is to keep families together so that these children don't have to go into foster care. They don't have to go into permanent medical institutions. They can be home with their families
Right.
where they should be. If a family wants to keep a child and they feel like they can't because of financial reasons, we want to help them kind of combat that.
Okay.
So we're going to do the monthly supply kits to 20 families, and also the families that are just struggling financially, just trying to figure it out. It does cost hundreds of dollars every single month just to sustain a disabled child.
Wow.
So it is a lot. It is a lot of money. We also are going to give away at least 10 to 15 wheelchairs this year to, I wanted to say students, but children.
Right.
They are students.
They are students too.
They are. But children that are either waiting for the insurance to approve their wheelchair, or for children that just don't have insurance, so that they can become self-sufficient.
Right.
You know, they can get a little bit of their freedom back, their life back, and they can be mobile and they can be safe. Because it's very unsafe for a parent or anyone to try to move a child from the bed to the couch or anywhere else without there being some type of equipment there.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's one of those things. We don't think about these things.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just that goal of having a supply kit once a month that answers that need, having the wheelchair to get the mobility back, and helping them keep the family together.
Yes.
Helping them keep their children in the home. What goes is the supply kit solely the rubber gloves and the sanitary wipes, or is there more beyond
so the gloves, the wipes, we have Amazon gift cards because, again, there's different levels of injuries, so there's different supplies that you need depending on your child's level. So we didn't want to make the kits too specific,
right,
and have anyone need something that we didn't provide.
Gotcha.
So Amazon gift cards, you can get whatever your child or your family needs, and also gift cards just to get food.
Okay.
Food insecurity is also a big thing. And then we also put in there a monthly surprise for the child.
That's
so
nice.
Last month we did headsets. Again, these children's lives have changed so much. Sometimes they just want to be in their own world, and the headsets mean a lot. We thinking about doing blankets, so they're unable to regulate their body temperature sometimes. So the house could be hot.
Sure.
But the child could be cold.
Sure.
So that's something little things that we don't really think about, but it's really important to that child because it's giving them some sort of independence back and control over their space that they feel like some of them feel like they have lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just put a smile on their face.
Exactly.
Too.
And we've talked about positivity both here and in other conversations, but it is amazing to me in my world to see someone like you who is so positive about making that change and so positive about helping people out. What has been the reaction from people that you've encountered, especially in the last 3-4 months as you're getting up and running? What has the reaction been from people when they hear the story, when they see what you're doing? How accepting and how willing are they to help?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100% are accepting and willing. Their first reaction is sadness or anger, right? Because of the situation with my son. And they're also astonished that, like, how are you staying so positive? How do you even have energy from what you went through to give it to anybody else?
Right.
And, again, the children, that is honestly me and my son's motivation. We want to help as many of them as we possibly can, and hopefully we can help more than we've been helping. That is the goal. So that is what keeps us positive. And honestly, by the end of the conversation, they're as positive as me.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, what do I have to do to help?
What do you need? How can I help?
What do you need?
Yeah. I think that's a big part of telling the story and letting people know what's happening. And if you can do it one-on-one, if you can do it in a podcast like this, getting that story out there means so much.
Yes.
And it will mean so much to some of the children that you're working with because they'll have some positive changes on their side. Tell me a little bit more about where Shafir is today. He has said he's going to walk again.
Yes. 100%.
And he's convinced all his therapists and the doctors, they're in it. And he inspires them too.
He does. He inspires everybody that he meets because his thing is, I don't have time to be depressed, okay? That energy has to go into me walking. I am going to walk. He literally has goals. They are dated. I am going to walk. I am going to be right by this. I'm going to be on crutches by this date. And everyone's like, okay, well, we're getting on board with this.
Yeah.
You are going to walk. We love it when a child has dates because most of the time, this is what we encounter. And this is why people are so taken aback by our approach to things. Most of the time, the children go through a depressed phase first.
Sure.
And that's 100% normal. Your life changed basically in the blink of an eye. Yeah? So what he doesn't have is that. He doesn't have that. He has that positive. You have to stay motivated. He even tells other children, come on, you got this. You have to stay motivated.
Wow.
You are going to do this. Do your pressure relief so you don't get a sore, because if you get a sore, it's going to knock you back. You don't want that. So he educates them. He advocates for them. And he is a positive force. So whenever the doctors see him, the PT, the OT, he's always advocating for more therapy.
Oh, wow.
He's like, I need more therapy because my deadline's coming up.
Okay.
I need that.
Yeah.
So that is him. He is 100% going to walk. Crutches or with whatever assistive device or with no assistive device, he is going to.
That's so inspiring. It really is. And I have not met him in person yet. I'm very much looking forward to that day. But seeing how you describe him and it radiates through you,
Yes.
I hope our viewers and our listeners get that today, that it's mind-boggling that these things happen. It's difficult to comprehend, and it's something that we tend to avoid.
Yes.
But there is a positive thing that can come from this, and you are on that way. You are on that journey with him. Where would people go to find more about Shafir's journey?
Of course, the website. It's www.shafirs, SHAF as in Frank, IRS, journey.org.
Okay, and that website's gone live in the last few weeks, and it looks great.
It is wonderful.
And there
I'm
are
so
places
happy
on
about
there
it.
on there for you to volunteer,
Yes.
to donate, to get in the newsletter and get involved. You have a couple of fundraising events later in the year that you're working on, which I think is very exciting.
Yes.
Where are you financially in as far as the fundraising? What's a short-term goal for right now, and what's the long-term goal for the end of this year and beginning of year 2?
Well, I personally finance the organization now, and I have been since its beginning through real estate.
Okay.
So short term, we are looking to raise at least $5,000 just to cover a couple months of the supply kits.
Right.
And then our long-term goal is $100,000 between the charity gala, the cocktails for a cause, and the little charity events that we'll be doing towards the end of the year.
Wonderful. And Shafir is going to go back in person in the fall?
Yes, he is excited. Right now, he is online, which is amazing because most kids, after they're injured, they take about 2 to 3 years off just to get acclimated to being injured because it's an entirely different life. He was adamant he was going to go back to school. This was not going to stop him graduating on time.
Wow.
So, but next year, his last year of school, our hopes is in person.
Wonderful.
He will be in person. We don't hope. He will be in person.
Absolutely. It's a positive. We're certain of that.
Yes, we are.
Well, I really appreciate having met you and that I'm going to be working with you. I am fascinated by the story. I am angered in some part by the story, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to other things. And I hope that our listeners and our viewers today get that inspiration and be a positive force for change within their own worlds.
Yes.
We all have our separate worlds right now, but there is a lot of commonality in the things that we encounter. And Jasmine, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your stories with me. And I look forward to seeing you here around the Pyramid Club and the Content Club and here in Center City, where we're going to do a lot of good things together.
Yes.
And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you all again here very, very soon.